In this video, I'm going to show the process of this project from the creation of the artwork to the fanzine. The question here is why to start with experimentation instead of going straight to drawing. And the reason is I start reading poetry and at the same time doing the project, and I think these two go really well together. But the main idea was to create an atmosphere that was true to the poetry and true to the feeling I wanted to convey. So that's why I started with experimentation, and later on I went to a more in-depth with the technique that I wanted for this scene. Here's a summary of the techniques that I use: monoprints and gelatin plates because none of the pieces can be replicated, acrylic and watercolor, and also found objects and collage. These videos are an example of the process. Here was the beginning of this process. I was just trying to experiment, to make marks, to see how this drawing and painting process look like. I experimented with different papers and tools, and most importantly, as you will see in these videos, is I create my own tools because I wanted that I wanted to have less control and be more expressive. Sorry. At this stage, what was important wasn't exactly I was doing or the final result. What was important is to find a voice. And I feel that it took me days of work for me to find what I wanted to convey and the feeling that I want from the pieces. You will see later on that I discarded some techniques and process, and I stick to others that it feels more natural for this theme. I not only create tools, but I also use a variety of tools for this particular project. For instance, I have this very soft brush, and I use a thicker one in order to create a more texture stroke. And here is a different brush that I use for this project. I also mix ink. I use pure ink, black ink, and I added water to it. As you can see, the color is clear. This is a small video where I'm gonna show you how I use color pencils. This is very interesting for me. I have been using for quite some time the color pencils, but in this project I didn't use for calligraphy as I normally do. I use it for painting. Um, it changes the stroke as you use it, and it's a lot of fun, and you don't need to worry is it gonna break or not because you can make another one. So for me this was a very interesting process and intrinsic part of how expressive this project is. Here, there is a combination of stamps that I create with phone or tools that I use that are unusual for me, and this is part of the experimentation process. The follow videos are just a mix of the result of these experimentations. The waves were done with wax. This is a brush that I created. As you can see, it's just a mix of failures, but they are gonna be the main source of inspiration for later work. So it was important for me to show you this stage and this part of the process. This is the part where I start put everything together. The first thing we need to know is the sea was the main source of inspiration. As you can see, as an overlook of all the pieces that I work on, they have rocks and seas. Even if I change the color, the main source of is the sea, where it represents the feelings that it creates. So that's important to keep in mind. Again, many of those pieces, even though they are beautiful, are gonna be discarded basically because none of them represent the feeling that I wanted to convey. For instance, this piece is one of my favorite, but it still doesn't convey the feelings that I wanted. This was a very strange experimentation with hot wasps and ink. I love them, they look beautiful, but I still know what I wanted. Later on, I gonna show you how the final pieces collide with the poetry. Poetry was the main source of emotions that drive these pieces. This part should call in the selecting work, but I struggle not to include certain pieces because I like them. I prefer things that have color in it, like the second in this picture, rather than the one who are black and white or blue. But at the end of the day, what was important for me is the consistency among the pages. This is something I'm gonna speak in the next video. But choosing what not to include and what to add to the scene was a difficult process indeed. In the next video, I'm gonna show how I compose the pages and how I create the scene.